Hey guys, and welcome to a new video. Today I want to talk about my mid-game slash early late game Druid, which is a Pulverize Werebear Druid, and I've been having a lot of fun in the Diablo 4 grind. I'm currently level 70. I've been doing a lot of like this exploring and discovering. I unlocked all my Lilith altars and so on and so forth, and now I want to talk about my progression, what led me up to this current point. So I would say Diablo is like based around like early game, mid game, and end game. Where early game, what I would say is world tier 1 and 2, doing the campaign, doing all these kind of stuff until like level 50 somewhere at this point. Then you're going to start doing on World Tier 2 your capstone dungeon, which is I think somewhere over here, to unlock World Tier 3. And once you hit World Tier 3, I think this is when the mid-game starts. So characters do gain a lot less power in one hand because like I would say that in like the early game there is like almost every kind of dungeon you're running, you're upgrading gear constantly about like with the item power and stuff like that. You're gonna get better gems, you're gonna get more sockets and stuff like that. So there is like multiple ways of like upgrading your character. You're gonna find all the legendary affixes that are synergistic to your build. But once you reach mid game, your progression kind of slows down in one hand but not in the other. So what I want to say with that is, it's not going to be like that you're going to find an upgrade like every single dungeon or stuff like that, but you can start doing min-maxy stuff. I think this is more towards the end game, but you can start like upgrading your gear, for example, to at least like a 3 out of 5 stars, depending on what quality your item is. You want to get your affixes on your gear, so you have all the legendary powers that you need for your build. And keep in mind that a two-handed weapon has like double the amount of power than a legendary affix can have, and the amulet has a 50% power. That means if I'm gonna get like a random affix on this one and it says like up to 10, if I would do it on the amulet it would have a 15%, and if I would do it on a two-handed weapon it would be a 20% because it doubles the power. But you start doing all these kind of things, you start exploring the world, unlock your Lilith altars, gain a lot of like base stats, start exploring your Paragon board, which was very confusing for me in the start, but the further I went, the easier it got, because the majority of these nodes over here are just like stat nodes: 5 int, 5 willpower, 5 intelligence, dex, whatever. And there is only a few, like the blue and the yellow ones, that are actually doing something else. And basically, once you unlock like your glyph slots, you're gonna put one of your glyphs in based on your build, and that means that you have to meet certain requirements to gain extra stats. For example, here it says for every willpower, 5 willpower, I get like 3.4% increased damage while in werebear form. So what I do now is I check all in this radius, and this radius gets bigger as I think once the glyph is leveled up to level 15, and you can level those in the nightmare dungeons once they defeat the end game boss. And then you're basically looking for all these like willpower nodes, because every willpower node will now get this extra stat from your glyph. So basically, get to your travel. The travel nodes are not too necessary. Unlock the glyph, like level up, or at least like skill all the points that are based on the glyph, and then just keep moving upwards. Unlock the next board with a legendary power, and then go for the next glyph. Sock it all like the same way as we did here, and this is how you just move forward. But at the end of the day, once you farm tier 3, world tier 3, you start doing like hell tides, you start doing dungeons, you start doing completions. As I said, the renown grind that gives you paragon points, I'm still like missing a couple of those, right? But your character is getting stronger and stronger and stronger, even though you're doing less upgrades. But just because of all the passive things you're doing, your character gets a lot of power. And I think the thing is, like, once you're wall tier 3, there is a capstone dungeon, similar how you unlock tier 3 to unlock tier 4. I think it was somewhere down here. But this is a level 70 dungeon. And I felt my character was, like, very powerful. Once I reached, like, level 56, 57, I got the majority of my legendary powers that I'm gonna talk in a bit. And then on stream, I said, like, yo, let's YOLO. And fun fact, I did the capstone, which is a level 70 dungeon, at level 58. That was like 12 levels below the area zone. It took a couple of tries. It's not like I was just one-shotting everything. It took a couple of tries, especially the end boss. But here I was, level 58, unlocking world tier 4. And this is basically the beginning of the early end game, where you say like, hey, now I can do like a way higher dungeon tier. So for example, in the start you have like T1, Tier 2, Tier 3 maps. Now I'm like 24 Knights dungeons, which is like monster level 76, 77, somewhere at this, right? And all of a sudden my character felt like awkwardly weak in the start, because obviously you have to think about this with the upgrading path, right? You start with normal items, then you get into sacred items, and then you get into ancestral items, which is essentially the same item, but it's just empowered, higher item level or higher item power and more stats. So what you would do is you do early game, you don't really care about anything too much, you get level 50, you unlock Vault Tier 3, and then you start dropping sacred gear. So what you want to do is replace all your normal gear with sacred gear with the same legendary powers that you had before, and you do the exact same thing once you reach Vault Tier 4, which then you can drop ancestral gear. So you see that over here, this is a normal legendary, it doesn't have a border, then you have like the sacred gear with a little golden border here, and then the ancestral gear is this white border on the top side here, right? So then you always like start to revamp your character, try to have the same kind of legendary affixes where you already developed your build, which is working, but you want to get everything ancestral. And the first thing when I was level 58, I was dropping those ancestral items, but they are based for level 60. So I couldn't even wear the new stuff that I was actually dropping, and that's why it was very awkward. And I think my transition was like attack power 2000 or something when I unlocked Vault Tier 4, and now I'm like 5000, right? I got a couple levels, obviously like 12 more levels, a lot of Paragon points. I started to like level my glyphs and stuff. I started to upgrade my weapons to full when I said like, hey, I need that. But I basically took the first good ancestral legendary weapon that I found, I upgraded to 5, I slapped on my Pulverize affix, and this was like, I think this weapon alone gave me like 1500 attack power, so I was like in the 3.5 to 4k range, and then I started to upgrade once after every other gear. Let's go over the skill tree real quick, what I'm using here. Basically, I'm using my Earth Spike with Enhanced Earth Spike and Fierce Earth Spike for some Fortify effect over here. I used to have Maul over here, but I found the unique helmet, Vasilis Prayer, which says your Earth skills are now Werebear skills and fortify you for 15. That means now I can use Earth Spike in the Werebear form, which gets like a lot more damage based on all my Werebear multipliers, right? Then over here we go for the Maximized Pulverize, which is our main attack, and you want to try to get as maximum Pulverize on your gear. And then we have Enhanced Pulverize and the Primal Pulverize for reducing the damage taken from enemies. Then we go over here, Heart of the Wild Abundance for more spirit generation, so we can get more of these pulverizes out. We have more skill, core skill cost, but therefore more damage, and our core skill is Pulverize. We go over here, take some more notes from the Werebear stuff. Then we take a point in Earthen Bulwark with the Preserving Earthen Bulwark, the same as the Debilitating Roar with the Preserving Debilitating Roar, which is basically, this build is all around fortify and damage reduction and those kind of things. Companion skills, we only take Nature's Reach for like distant enemies, since our Pulverize is generating a shockwave, so the further the enemies are, the higher we crit, and I had like crits over 200,000 already. Then I swapped one thing. I used to run Trample with what is it, Natural Trample, so we can fortify, but at some point, you know, it is kind of like a movement skill that has a long cooldown, so I decided to go with Hurricane instead to activate Vulnerability to help me with some more single target damage for bosses. Then I have Crushing Earth, maxed out, Safeguard, and Stone Guard. This is all like fortify, earth skills, stuff like that. Then over here we get the Grizzly Rage, which is basically our ultimate. We want to have like a very high uptime on the Grizzly Rage because we're unstoppable, we have damage reduction, and we have extra damage. And we take the Earth and Might Keystone because all of our skills are now Earth skills, pretty much based on our items. So our, what is it, Earth Spike is an Earth skill, now usable in Bear form with this helmet, for example. Then we are converting our Pulverize into an Earth skill with this legendary over here that I have on the ring. Pulverize is now an Earth skill, so all of these can proc and will proc this Earth and Might Keystone, restoring a lot of like spirit and just keeping the Pulverize spamming going. When it comes to the spirit boons, I have here damage reduction. Over here I have the critical strike chance. Then we went with Fortify for maximum life when you use a defensive skill, and we use debilitating roar quite often, so we have a really good uptime on this one. And we have critical strikes with shapeshifting skill heal you, and lucky hit and nature magic skills have a 10% chance to reduce the cooldown of your ultimate skill by 2 seconds. So you can also take the calamity for extending the duration, but I think in dungeon stuff I have a really good uptime on my Grizzly Rage with like your superpower. And outside of Grizzly Rage you want to use something like Earth and Bulwark to gain like unstoppable for the duration and break CC, and actually have like a kind of a shield when bosses are doing certain abilities. Other than that, let's go over the gear real quick. I'm using like completely blue sockets for the damage reduction while fortified, so we are almost permanently fortified, so this is a good way of reducing the incoming damage, and armor skulls on our jewelry. As I said, the helmet with the earth skills and no werebear skills. If you don't have that, which can be the case because it is a unique, so it's rare, you can just go with the maul if you want to. Then here I have a damage from earth skills, slow the enemy's hit by 45% for 5 seconds. Means pulverize, everything that kind of slows the enemy, anything that counts as crowd control will give me a lot of extra damage, and that's why we also have slow on our earth skills. Then we have the duration of Grizzly Rage is increased by 5 seconds for the duration, and we get increased critical damage. I think this scales, or at least it stacks. It means the longer we remain in our Grizzly Rage with like cooldown, increased duration and stuff, and once we kill enemies, we're actually getting 1 second per kill on the Grizzly Rage duration, so the longer we can keep it up, the more damage we're gonna have. Then imprinted basic skills grant damage reduction. This is not necessary, but I just thought like I don't have anything better right now, but basic skills is just your auto attack, and once you throw it in once in a while, it's like 20% flat damage reduction, which is pretty useful. Then I have here when you have fortify, your earth skills gain +2 ranks. Since our Pulverize is now an earth skill based on our Pulverize legendary, this gets +2, and you want to get as high Pulverize levels as possible. Weapon is my Pulverize Shockwave legendary. Then here I have earth skills deal increased critical strike damage to crowd controlled enemies. As I said, we crowd controlling enemies all the time because we're slowing them. Then we have here the Mother's Embrace, is a unique ring that says if you hit more 5 or more enemies, you gain resource cost refunded, so you can spam the pulverizes even more. It sucks a little bit on single target because you really have to like use your Earthen Spike to generate spirit to then use it for pulverize to actually keep the damage rolling. But if there is like large packs, you can just hammer your pulverize non-stop, sometimes 10 times in a row if monsters even survive that. Good, that's about the gear, the spirit boons, the skills. Paragon board, as I said, I'm pretty new to this as well. I'm using here at the moment the werebear glyph, as well as the undaunted glyph to have increased damage while fortified. As I said, we're almost like always fortified. And now I'm currently working towards the Earthen Devastation as well as the new glyph socket. On my second board, I took the Ancestral Guidance because we're spending spirit all the time, and we can we have like a really good uptime on this 30% increased damage for 5 seconds once we spend the spirit. As I said, our main skill is Pulverize. We're hammering down this, and so we get like this buff for extra damage. Good, what else is to say about that? What else did I do? As I said in the previous video, the first thing I did when I unlocked tier 3, I was unlocking all my altars, and now I'm working towards my renown. We're still not done. First zone I think is done. Second zone, I still need to get like 4, 8, 12, 16 Paragon points are still available to just like go into the world, to do like dungeons like World 3 and stuff like that, and then unlock that. And this is gonna be another power spike because 16 points or 12 points is probably gonna be a new glyph socket. It's probably gonna be some more legendary powers from your board for your Paragon board, some rare notes, more resistance, more damage, more tankiness, and so there is a lot of things that you can do outside to improve your character, in like next to getting upgrades based on the gear. Good. What is the next point? So I'm not level 70 now. At the moment, I'm just like tunneling some nightmare dungeons, and as I said, trying to fill up the dungeons, but I want to do it in a good fashion. In a good fashion means that I want to always double dip into scenarios. So if I would say, hey, I need this dungeon, I haven't done it, I can unlock an aspect, so I get the first time completion, I'm gonna get my Paragon towards that. But what I could also do is taking the dungeons from the Tree of Whispers. So if I take this over here, I have done this already, so I'm just checking sometimes, going over here, oh, there is a vault, like a dungeon that I haven't done yet, and it is Whisper of Trees. So if I do that, I unlock it for my renown, but I also get 5 points toward my Grimward. So that's why I'm always like juggling in between. So sometimes I'm just being like, okay, I'm checking all the dungeons. So now it would be a perfect time to say like, hey, I'm gonna go do this dungeon. Afterwards I do this. So I get 2 more dungeons unlocked from my renown. But I can also then get another trash or cash reward from the Tree of Whispers. Then it resets, or like timer based, and you just keep on doing that. Farming Hell Tides is also very, very good because there are like a lot of treasure chests that you can farm specific gear for. And you're gonna get a lot of like rare crafting materials that you need to upgrade items to level 5. So farming Hell Tides, farming dungeons or nightmare dungeons, and farming the Whisper tree thingy, and you should be good to go. At least this is what I'm doing right now, trying to maximize or min-max my items in like the way that I now want to try to get as much like critical strike chance and critical strike damage, looking for better affixes, like perfect rolled ones on the perfect gear and stuff like that. So endgame is now where the journey begins to revamp your gear once again and start to get the most out of your character. I would say for a dungeon run, we're just gonna run one of these over here with the Whispers of Tree, so I can just do this right now. So you see an actual gameplay, so I can like keep on talking and show you guys how this build works in this kind of matter. And I would say once you start the dungeon grind, so I'm always like doing, since I've finished the dungeon like 10 minutes or so, I usually just pop one of my elixirs. You can craft them. I think I've never crafted an elixir. You just get them passively by doing side quests, by doing dungeons and stuff like that. So it's definitely worth using those. I'm not saying it's like crazy power spike. You're still gonna get some form of power spike, but all of these flasks or elixirs give you 5% increased experience. This doesn't sound a lot, but if you just keep that buff up and it persists over there, so if you die, if you meet the butcher or something like that, the elixir will still keep on going. And I think this is like kind of mandatory that you just have this elixir on, because if you're grinding like, let's say 20 hours with elixir and 20 hours without, you probably with the elixir you're still gonna get like 1 or 2 extra levels out of that, and they're cheap. Like the way I play, I just like this exploring cell. Every time I see here something to click on, I just click on it, and I have so many resources that I could probably craft like 100 elixirs for the next 50 hours of just playing. Not talking about the stuff that I'm gonna find afterwards, right? So let's go into this dungeon. I haven't been in here yet, and I also do get the 5 Grim Favors. So I'm just gonna pop here a consumable. I don't know. I tried to use the bad one, so maybe something that I see here, increased maximum resource by 50, I think is very powerful. There is also one that gives you like lucky hit chance, or reduce resource cost for spamming more stuff. You know, I want to keep those for the harder dungeon once I start progressing into the higher tiers of the nightmare dungeons. But this one here is just world tier 4, so I'm gonna take anything. I don't know, increase armor by 50 and thorns, whatever, you know. So I'm just gonna pop this in, gonna benefit from the 5%, and this way I also don't fake my gameplay where I say like, hey, you only did so much damage because you have XYZ kind of elixir on, right? But yeah, as we go, usually the thing that you do, you activate your hurricane so you can make monsters vulnerable, and because it persists through the werebear, and then we pop our grizzly rage, and then we just run around and pop our pulverizes to just humiliate, or yeah, literally pulverize all the enemies that are on our way. Sometimes you see here a 70k crit, and once you stay longer in your pulverize, in your grizzly rage window, you're just gonna ramp more and more damage. Let's see, we have to destroy sacred seals. So let's talk about how I proceed with like, what do I pick up, what do I look out for. And honestly, I have so many gems and whatnot on my stash, and once you unlock World Tier 4, you start dropping flawless gems, so all the other gems that you had before are kind of useless. You could upgrade them by the jeweler, but honestly, I have like, I don't know, like 30-40 gems flawless laying around on my stash for the future items that I might gonna get or not get. So in the end of the day, you're gonna find so many, it's just a waste of gold to upgrade your gems, right? Just unlock World Tier 4, run a couple dungeons, and you're gonna have a lot of like gems laying around, especially since you can also just unsocket them for gold from your gear. But this is also like not needed at all, because you're gonna find so many of those but it doesn't really matter. As you see, playstyle wise, in the start it was just like hammering your earthen spikes, but now I barely have to do that. Maybe I throw it in once or twice in sometimes to get the damage reduction based on my legendary, but in these kind of like what would you say, scenario, it is not necessary. Like, why? It is so easy, these like World Tier 4 without affixes from the Nightmare dungeons, that I don't have to worry about earthen spiking, right? What I want to do is just run around, you know, just slap some first spirit generation and then just hammer the Pulverize away. Good, let's go into Grizzly Rage. Oh yeah, so continuing the what do I pick up, gems not really necessary at any point. I stopped picking up any kind of like normal items, sacred items and so on, because it's just gonna fill your inventory and you're gonna generate quite a lot of gold by just running these dungeons and picking up the gold from the monsters. Even though if you start upgrading your gear, it's gonna be expensive early on, but at some point when everything is upgraded, so you can just pick up all the rare items and just fill it up and then just vendor it. You don't salvage, but vendor it to just generate your first like 4 or 5 million gold to upgrade your gear. But once this is done, it's not like that you're gonna get an upgrade like every dungeon or so, that you have to like re-spend all the money. And just by grinding yesterday, I made like 5 or 6 million gold just by running dungeons, picking up gold from the ground, because I was salvaging all the stuff that I found, right? So I only pick up ancestral item. I still pick up every single legendary that I find. Most of them are sacred from World Tier 3 because of the perfect affixes that you want to try to get onto your ancestral gear. So I'm hoarding perfect legendaries to extract them later on and then basically use it for my perfect gear at some point, right? Good. As you see, damage wise, it's just like I'm super tanky. I'm just like 1, 2, 3 shotting based on if I'm lucky or not, if I get a good crit in. As you see, just like fucking killed that monster out in the next world basically. So, those 2 steps are done. Let's see if we can now go to the boss. I think there's still a pre-step. So it takes a bit to do those dungeons, but there's still like a very good way, especially when it goes to the Nightmare dungeons. You want to upgrade your glyphs, you want to start ramping up your item drops and try to min-max your character as good as possible. And then just push further and further until you at some point maybe reach level 100 or find the stuff that you would like to have for your next build. So let's talk about that. Originally, like my favorite build in Diablo 2 was the Storm Druid. And I would really like to play Tornado and Hurricane mix, because this is just something I'm used to from Diablo, and I really enjoy this kind of playstyle. And I figured out there is a way to make a very interesting werewolf build out of that, right? It works very similar to the Werebear, converting everything into earth skills, but what you do with the werewolf is to convert everything into storm skills and then be able to cast tornadoes based on your attack speed in your werewolf form. There is also ways to like I have a legendary on my stash that converts my Grizzly Rage to instead making me into a dire Werebear into a dire werewolf for a lot of like spirit cost reduction, so you can like spam out these tornadoes. And I think it's gonna be probably a very good build. I mean, it's known that pulverized druids are very strong, especially once you start going into the end game. But I want to play something else, but like just hammering pulverizes. I think the druid can offer a lot more build viability. The question is, will it be better than pulverize? I don't know. I have to figure out how I'm gonna make this build possible, but there is just some key aspect missing. So here's the vault done. Yeah, didn't really got a lot of things, like one helm over here that I will most likely just salvage because it's a very low roll. But as you saw gameplay wise, it's an absolute dream. You're super tank, you're just pulverizing, you're just critting and just hammering down all these monsters, elites, rares, and even the boss damage was not too bad either. But yeah, talking about the werewolf again, I need these helmets. This helmet is a unique helmet that gives our werebear skills are now earth skills, or earth skills are now werebear skills, right? And for some reason, like there is a second helm that is very similar to this one. It just says like your lightning skill or storm skills are now werewolf skills. and I really need this helmet as a baseline for my werewolf storm build, and I found this helmet 3 times already. So he's kind of unlucky, you know. I have 3 times the werebear helmet, but I cannot find the werewolf. So I hope that I'm gonna find it at some point, so I can actually try out. I'm already gathering gear and legendaries. I found here this one that gives me permanent werewolf, and this also exists for the werebear that I haven't found there. So I'm like having a mix of like, here, this is a perfect item for this build. There is a perfect item for that build. So what I can do is just continue to grind, just grinding, and eventually at some point I'm gonna find all the items that I need to go on and try out the next build. Alright guys, hope you enjoyed this kind of video. Thanks for tuning in, thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.